Hi, I hope you're well. Today I thought I'd do something a bit different and just do a colour along. Instead of speeding up the colouring, I'll let you follow along with me. So at the bottom left of the screen, you're going to have um, the colours that I'll be using. I'm using Copics, but I mean you can use any kind of alcohol markers to follow along with this. And yeah, just and I'll be just telling you what I'm doing at the time, and don't worry, I won't be yapping for like 40 minutes. I'll just tell you the important parts. So this first part that I'm doing, I'm colouring in all of the skin shadows. I usually start by using a blue violet colour or a violet. You don't actually have to use the BV34. You can use any sort of mid-tone violet for this. And the reason I do this is that it gives a little more depth to the skin shadows. Instead of it looking just like a darker brown or a red, it'll actually look a bit more like a shadow. Okay, so I'll let you follow on with that. Me again. So we're going to go in with the hair now, with the same colour, create a bit more shadow in there. As I'm going to be colouring the hair with a darker colour, it probably won't actually make any difference to the shadow of the browns. But I do like to use the pigment that I'll use for the shadow in all of the different places, as I think that helps to bring the image together a bit. So I'll let you follow on with that one. So now that we've finished doing the shading on the skin and the hair, we're going to put a bit of rosiness in the cheeks and on the nose and on the tips of the fingers. I always just go for these parts at the beginning, well, in the lips as well. I sometimes put it at the side of the head there, like you can see me doing as well. So the places where I always put the red in are the tips of the fingers, the cheeks, the lips, the chin, a bit on the chin, and just on the temples, like you would do with a bit of blush. One of the reasons I do this first is it comes from the I say painter background, but I'm not much of a painter. But I did learn when I was painting in oils and in acrylics, or in watercolor, that when you're painting skin, you put the rosiness underneath first, and then it will kind of look like proper skin, because that's how skin works. It's like you have the rosiness underneath that comes from your veins, and then you have the skin over the top. So now I'm going in with the E01 and E51, which is the skin colour. I think I just switched from the E01 just because I didn't have enough ink in that pen and I haven't got a refill. So just going over with the skin colour, that, just all over, that will create a nice base. So now I'm going in with E71. E71, I love using that over the purple for the shadows of the skin. That's one of my favourite shading colours for skin. So you go back over the shadow parts, maybe overlapping them a little bit more, creating a bit more depth in the parts of the skin that you would like to use, and yeah, just follow over the shadows and make them a bit more, a bit bigger. I'm also going to use E71 for the inside of the mouth. I think that'll create a nice base colour anyway, before we put the red in there, because if you put red inside of the mouth on its own, it tends to look a bit weird. I think you need a sort of a skin colour or something like that to make it work. So now I'm taking the E04 and I'm going in into the mouth and creating the darker mouth colour. I think this is quite a good compromise because it's a bit orangey reddy but brown at the same time, so it doesn't, it doesn't create kind of weird colour that would be too red. I'm also putting it just on the tip of the nose. What I do sometimes is that I'll create these really darker red colours in the cheeks and on the nose and stuff like that. And if I was to leave it like that, it would be a bit harsh. But as we're going to be blending a little bit later, you can kind of let yourself do that, because when you blend over with the colour that's lighter with Copics, especially if you're using a good blending paper, then it will make the darker colour a little more forgiving, a little more lighter. So here I'm going over a second time with the E04 that we'd already done in the interior of the mouth. But remember with Copics that you can go over a second time what you've already coloured to create depth in that shading. Now we're with R85, which is a nice colour to make the reds on the tips of the fingers and where I'd put them in the beginning, to create a bit more depth in those colours. Remember, don't panic if it looks too red or too rosy. You can always go over it and blend it out a bit more, as long as you're not going too over the top. So now I'm going to switch up to R83, which is just 2 shades lighter than the R85, and make those rosy parts a little bit larger. So I always jump 2 shades on the Copic colours. So on the last letter of each Copic colour, I go from R85 to R83. So that it blends well. I suppose you all know that anyway. You can not only do this with the same shade, but you can do this with different colours. I often like doing it, like for example, if I have a blue colour that finishes in 3, I can blend it with a violet colour that ends in 5. And you'll see sometimes I don't have enough Copics to be able to blend the same colour, and so I'll sort of blend them between colours, orange and yellow, or even orange and pink, and it'll still work the same. So it's a nice little trick to have, especially when you can't afford the whole box of Copics. Here I'm blending out all of the pinks with R21. I like that colour because it's quite subtle. It's a bit orangey and a bit pink at the same time, so it's a nice compromise when you're going back into the skin shades. Now I'm going with E31, and don't go, even though it's quite a light shade, don't go over the whole face with this if you'd like a lighter skin tone. Just go sort of around the edges still, but still going more and more towards, I don't know how to explain it, but towards the lightest shade. So you sort of creeping towards the shade that would be lightest on your face, do you know? don't panic if you think that it's too dark. Often when you're colouring with Copics, if you leave it for about 5 minutes, and you're using the same kind of paper, a blending paper, it will get lighter again because I don't know, the pig the alcohol in the markers are going to evaporate, and a part of that is what's making the color darker. So, you know, don't panic the first time you see quite a dark tone of any color that you're putting down. So this is YR00. It's another color I really like to use for skin tones, and I use it a lot for blending. So here I'm going to start working on the hair with the E25. Um, it's quite a mid-tone brown, but I'm gonna use it just on like the the darker parts of the hair, just around the sides for the moment, until I actually decide what color I'm gonna make the hair. I think I think at this point I was still wondering whether I'd like her to be a redhead or not, and so I'm kind of trying out the brown color and seeing how it goes. So now here, I think you can see that I've decided that the hair's going to be actually brown. So I'm just going to go for it and colour all of the hair in brown. I'll let you follow along, and I'll come back. So now that all of the hair's coloured in, we're going to go in with a V99, or a very dark colour, as the Copic colour has finished with a 9. That means that it's the darkest colour that you can have. I use the V99 because it's a violet, and I don't really like using the same colour to shade with that I used to as my main colour. Violet is a good shading colour for brown, as we used on the face, and so here I'm using the violet to shade the brown hair. I'll let you follow along with that as well. You just have to go in with, you don't have to be really particular about the each strand of hair or things like that. You just have to sort of colour the odd strand in a little bit darker, um, to give an illusion of depth. I mean, don't make it an exact science. So we've got to the good part now, and I just noticed I didn't edit it properly. I think it's R02 that I'm using for to put a little bit of R37. There you go, to put a bit of nail polish on. Ria will like that one if you're watching Ria. So yeah, you can choose whichever colour you'd like. So here's a fun trick that I like to use with my Copic colouring, is that I'll go back over a colour um, with a lighter colour to create a kind of new colour. I don't know. It, there's some colours that logically don't go together, like this light yellow over the brown that I just made. But when you actually put it over there, it creates quite of a good, a fun look. And I get a lot of surprises like this sometimes. So I mean, you don't have to kind of follow the rules. Look at that. It's become a completely different color than the boring brown, and it's kind of created a bit of interest in the piece. So I do, encourage you to like experiment. Even if you think you've just um, just experiment with that kind of thing. Putting different colors over the color that you've already put down, and you might get some good surprises like I just did there. So now I've changed my mind about the hair again. And it's gonna be a red, and she's gonna be a redhead after all. Um, a lot of these crazy colours that I come out with, in colour schemes that I come out with, some people often say that it's because they really like the way that I imagine them, but a lot of this is done because I don't have the full set of Copics, in fact, and when you don't have the resource, you have to think of ways to create interest anyway in your pictures. And so this is one of them. I don't have a ton of different browns. In fact, there you go. And so I'm having to do this with the colours I do have. So that's why she's a redhead. So here I'm going in with the E27 brown. I'm going to create a lot more depth into her hair. Like I said at the beginning, when the Copic dries out, and it gets lighter, sometimes you finished a piece of your drawing and you think that it's done, and you have to come back to it in like 5 minutes and look at it again, because sometimes your colours will become much lighter and you have to go back and create that depth again. So that's what I'm doing here. So I'm quickly going in with C5 around the eyes. This drawing has quite a small eye. Um, I just quickly did that. And then between the top of the mouth and the teeth, what this does is kind of creates the depth, the distance between the teeth and the upper lip, and it makes it look like it's not stuck together. In fact, here you go. And then there's B00 that I'm using um, for the eyes and the teeth as well, kind of blending it out. I do tend to colour in a bit too much of this because I go back over with the jelly roll white pen at the end, and so that usually sorts out all of my teeth and my eyes stuff and it puts puts the white back in there. So now I'm going to give her a nice sort of grey bluish dressing gown, night dress. So I'm going in with the BV 25 again and creating all of the shadows. So I'll let you follow that along with that. Oh, sorry, me again. I'll leave you in peace in a second. But just to tell you, when you're colouring in the clothes, just create these triangle kind of lines that come across. You know, when I used to watch other artists do this, I was kind of intimidated by it because I thought that they actually did something that was calculated. But when I just started putting in these sort of diagonal lines, as if the the tissue was moving, was sort of curving, and just put them in like once or twice, that creates the illusion as if you're actually copying a real thing. But you know, it's not calculated at all. It's just random. I'm just putting in 2 or 3 lines diagonal and diagonally, and it creates the illusion as if the cloth or whatever is moving and is folding. So there you go. So now we're going to go on to her night dress again with the C3. This is just, again, I'm using a shade that it's 2 shades different from the BV25, but it's a different colour because I don't have a blue violet 3, and because it creates a bit of interest in the colour to have different different sort of tones anyway. So there I'm still creating these kind of diagonal lines to give it the impression of the fabric that's folding, but really quite random lines. You'll see I'm not, not really following any kind of rule. So here I'm going over with the B63 over the C3, and it will create kind of a greyish blue. This is something that you can do if you haven't got the full set of markers or very many markers, is that you create your own colours anyway when you're sort of layering one colour over the top of another. So all of the different markers that you're buying are just different pigments that are mixed anyway. So you might as well do it yourself on the paper sometimes. So we're going in again with the V34. Remember, I think this is one that we started with, and well, it just goes to show that you can come back and create more depth on your colours by going over the colouring with the same colour. I see a lot of manga artists do shading um, with just one marker, in fact, because they do one tone um, of just the flat colour, and then they shade it again. They go over the with the same marker, but use that same marker as a shading colour. I don't know if I'm clear, but you know. The second time you go over the piece of paper with a marker, it's darker. There you go. So now we're going in and colouring in the cushions. The cushions, I use the same method as I do with any kind of fabric, is that I'll just randomly create these diagonal lines that are pointed at the end to create a kind of the impression that the fabric is folding. There you go. So I'll let you follow along with those. So here I just wanted to let you know that the reason why I'm creating this kind of tequila sunrise um, color, and I've done this before, and people have always said, "Oh, I love the way that you mix colors," and this, but this is again the thing. I don't have enough different shades of the orange or the yellow to blend to make this color, this sheet yellow. And so what I'm doing is the color in between that I need will end with a 4, but I'm using the RV34, so it's red, but I'm still getting that kind of blend that I like. And yeah, so I'd really encourage anyone to do this, because as well you kind of get some really nice combinations out of it as well. So just to show that when you have to when you have to figure something out yourself without necessarily having the resources, it sometimes creates something that's even better. There you go. Here you can see I'm putting RV06 in the hair. It's a red colour and not necessarily present in a lot of hair, but I do like to use, if I've used like a lot of pink or a lot of any colour in the drawing, I think it kind of balances it out to use it everywhere in the drawing, and so that's why I end up doing that. So the bedboard is going to be a kind of a wood colour. I only learnt this year that you could shade a whole flat surface with Copics by making circular motions with the Copic. Before I was kind of going backwards and forwards and then trying to blend it out and things like that. But if you use these small circular motions that I'm not doing there, but I was, then you kind of it makes it look a bit flatter, and especially if you have a full marker. So there you go. Sorry, I left you a bit following along there. I didn't have a lot to say about what I was doing, so I'm sorry if it was a bit random. Here I'm going in with C5 because I don't think that the shadows are strong enough. I've kind of looked at my drawing from, as a total now, and I think it needs a lot more depth. Even at the end, I don't think I ended up with enough depth. There's a trick that you can do to see if your coloured drawing looks a bit flat, is that you can take a picture of it, or you can put it through a scanner, and then you can change it to grayscale. And if it makes a pretty decent pencil drawing or a grayscale image, then you've done all right. But I mean, you can sometimes look at it as if it's a grayscale and sort of see that you don't have enough dark tones, really dark tones. You don't have enough really light tones. So watch out for that as well. It's not only the colours that you have to look out for, but the darks and the lights will make it really dramatic and stand out and really make a difference to your drawing. So here I'm going back in over the skin tones again. This is, as I said before, the Copics tend to sort of evaporate, and then the colour that you've already put on the picture tends to evaporate, and you finish with something that looks a lot more washed out than you actually intended. So whenever I'm doing skin and things like that, I always tend to go back over like a ton of times, over and over again, and and create lots of layers and make sure that the color that I'm actually finished with when the painting is dry is as vibrant as I'd like it to be, as I intended it to be when I was actually coloring it. So just here we're going to create the little tunnel in the mouth. Um, I don't often like draw this as a line because I think it looks quite confusing. So I kind of hope that people will actually colour it instead of it being drawn. But when you sort of go into the throat of somebody that's yawning like this, it won't sort of just all be dark. It will create this kind of tunnel effect, and so you sort of just have to create this kind of semicircle there, and it makes quite a nice effect. It's a lot more depth in your, I don't know, colouring. So I've just looked at the rest of what I'm doing now. So I'm going to leave you to carry on and kind of just follow along. What I'm doing for the rest of the time now is just going in and you know either making the colours that have dried out more vibrant or creating a lot more depth with darker colours or more vibrant colours um, to get the result that I'm looking for. A thing that I would encourage you to do, sometimes, this colouring, I think it took me like 2 hours to do, something like that. Well, no, I'm lying, aren't I? Because it's in real time, but the this colouring took like I think it's 40 minutes. This one, but sometimes um, I get really tired. I just want the drawing to be finished, and so I kind of keep saying to myself, "Oh, that'll do. That'll be okay." But the thing is, always think of the time that you've already invested in a project. You know, do you really want to have invested a half an hour in a project and then it not be very good because you didn't want to give 20 minutes more to it? Do you know? That's what I always remember is that to have something that's um, half as good, you know, for half an hour's work, it's well worth putting in the extra 15 minutes to have something that's really good and that you're really proud of, and that you won't want to use as a placemat in a couple of weeks or something. So yeah, but saying that, I mean, you can always go back to it in a couple of weeks, but yeah, I think you know what I mean. So I'm going to leave you now and just go around your drawing and make it as good as you can. Don't be scared of messing it up either. You have to be a bit brave sometimes to push it a bit forward, and then I'll come back when I'm ready to put all the white highlights in that I love to do. Yay, so it's time to jelly roll. As you probably know, this is one of my favourite bits. And I think I go a bit over the top with these, but I don't know. It's become a bit of a thing that I like doing to you know, I just like doing it. But so what the reason I do this is often because I find there isn't enough contrast in the colour that in the drawing that I created. I also do it in certain places on the drawing, like for example in the eyes. It's like the day and the night, the difference between the eyes that you create when you don't put these white highlights in, and the eyes that you create anyway. So that really helps. And it's also sometimes I find that with the Copic brush markers that I use, um, the 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 lines aren't sharp enough, and it creates a kind of crispness. So here I'm going over with on the hair. I think I'll be going over the teeth, and when you see, I'll, I I do this on the fabric as well, and again it's to create a more crisp line between the two different shades, because I don't really like, the lines that I'm creating on with the Copic brush markers. So that's why I do that. I'll probably put it over on the nails as well, create a bit of shine on those nails. What did I want to say? I need to say one more thing. Oh yeah, the jelly rolls. I've If you don't like the really white colour that they create, I found a thing that you can do is actually go back over with a light coloured Copic marker, and it kind of dumbs it down, but creating that crispness that you get with the jelly roll. So it's quite a nice touch. What I'd really like to have is different coloured jelly rolls that kind of lighter, like these white ones, and that would be nice to be able to sort of do different coloured lines all over the place. But yeah, so I hope this has been of some help for you, and I'm sorry for my rambling. This is the first time that I did this. And I hope you had fun colouring the image if you followed along. I didn't say it at the beginning, but this image is, well, you probably already know if you're here, but this image is available at the store, the Twistoon.com store, and as a colouring page or digistamp or whatever. It's printable. And yeah, so have a lovely day or evening wherever you are. Bye.